Hello there. Bed's messed up because the kitties and I were napping earlier. Um, I have something I really, really, really need to talk to you guys about. Uh, I'm not sure if Lara Trump and the RNC don't actually know how actual election process on election day at the polling places, if they just don't know how it's done, or if they're just deliberately lying. Because they're doing the same thing they carried on about last time, about we have to stop counting as soon as election night is over. As soon as it's over, they can't count any more ballots. Let me explain to you how completely asinine they sound when they say that. I worked for a decade when I lived in Arizona for 32 years. A decade of that I worked in the elections. Every freaking election I was at a polling place working. Of those 10 years, 8 of them I was an inspector of a polling place, which means I ran that polling place for that day. And ultimately, it was my responsibility if something didn't come out right, if everything didn't come out, if I was missing something, if something was done wrong, if the election was screwed up and it came down that it got screwed up in my precinct. Guess whose ass is on the line? It's the inspector who's in charge of that polling place where the errors were made. That's who's responsible. I mean, yes, the of elections, the county clerk's office, but the one who caused the problem is the person who ran that polling place. They didn't keep an eye on everything, which is not easy. It's a 15-hour day. I've talked to you earlier on that. But we did not hit on how they, after elections, after it's closed, everything's, delivered to the main collection area, and election night is over. Let me explain to you how they count the votes. Now, all those early voting days that you go and put in, or mail-in voting, where you mail it in or you put it in a collection box for early voting ballots, and any of that kind of thing. People that are disabled, people that don't have vehicles, it's not easy to get to voting. They voted in mail-in. Military that are overseas vote mail-in. Military that are in the United States but not stationed maybe where their residence is, at in between or something, they have to vote. All military have to vote like mail-in practically. Now, when the polls close, there's a couple of hours where we don't have any tabulations even started. That's because they're closing the polling places, closing the machines. We're counting not who voted. We don't know who voted for what. But we have to count how many ballots. And we have to have the same amount. If we lost a ballot, we're screwed. Big time screwed. And we can't go home until we find that ballot. And if we can't find it in any of the garbage cans, somebody might have put it in their pocket because they messed up and they didn't hand it to us. If they screwed up a ballot, you're supposed to hand it in, not just, walk away with it. So that kind of shit. So we'll stop from starting tabulation. But once it's started, by the time midnight hits on election night, you can't stop counting the votes because all of those ballots that are still waiting to be counted from early voting or mail-in from military or just mail-in in general, that's all been sitting there. It's been postmarked. So as long as it's postmarked by midnight on election day, that means it was voted before election day ended, which means it's a legitimate vote, and you cannot just stop counting votes at midnight. Are they fucking insane, MAGA? Do you have any idea how much it takes to count millions of votes, even with machines? You can't, it can't process them that fast. And we can't start counting them until election has ended. Because people can't have a precursor of, oh, all the mail-in. You never hear the mail-in ballots were all counted, and because the cutoff date was such and such for a mail-in ballot, and so we counted all of those and we've checked, and so the next people know who they have to get on actual election date. No, that's not how it works. Those ballots are not tabulated. They're not even looked at. They are sat in a pile and they are not counted until all ballots are counted at the same time. So saying, oh, they're counting ballots after election day's over the next day, they've been sitting there for an effing week waiting to be counted. They were there before your damn vote was counted on election day, Lara. So guys, that is the actual way that polling places work. Very, very quick synopsis. But that is how they work. So saying, oh, they're counting them the day after election day, that's not fair, that's not fair. Yes, it is, because they're still counting the ones that came in on time. God, they're stupid. Do they really think that from the very first time a ballot is put into the mail and received by the county clerk's office, that there's somebody there going, oh, another ballot, let's count it? No. No. They're all unveiled and counted and seen who they voted for all on the same day. So basically you're saying that anybody who went on election day is counted, and anybody that had to vote any other way doesn't get counted. To you, Laura, that's what I say. Okay? That is illegal. That is voter interference. By refusing to let legitimately voted ballots be counted. Do not, when they're setting this up early because they know they're going to lose if they don't get some serious cheating going on. They know it. And they're desperate because their little orange cult leader is desperate. Because he doesn't want to go to prison. He wants to get himself pardoned. Okay? That is the only purpose. He is panicking because he has to be president now. He has to, or he goes to prison. The rest of his life is screwed. And he knows that, and everybody knows that, and the lawyers that got in trouble for Trump definitely know. He is scrambling in panic because of all the illegal things he has done over the years. Okay? That's the only person. Everybody else is just fighting for what he wants. It's not necessarily what they want. Remember that. And remember, on election night, when you're hearing everybody say, oh, MAGA, stop the counting, you will be able to know what the fact is. I still say everybody should have to attend a 3.5 hour meeting, a class teaching you how the elections work so you can work in them. But everybody, before they're allowed to physically receive their voter registration, should have to go through that class. They don't have to work the election, but they need to know how it works. So they stop all this foolish ridiculousness, this stupidity, and all this wasted time and money and bullshit, and we could lose a country for these lies. That is what I told you is how a polling place runs. That is how elections run. None of those early voted ones are even cracked open until the day. Do you really think even electronic machines can count everybody in this country in not even a 24-hour period, when the polls close at 7 or 8 or whatever till midnight, that's in that amount of time. Do you really think everybody could be counted in that amount of time? Come on, you know that's not possible. Even mechanically, it's not. It's not happening. And it's not happening, and it never has happened at elections. And the only time that it's been such a huge issue is since Trump, the liar, came on the scene. Think about that. Think about that. We've had scuffles about, oh yeah, was this legit? But in general, people trusted and had a concept. If they didn't understand, if they chose not to learn how the voting election process works, they at least trusted it. Now people don't trust it, and they don't really want to learn how. They just want to be told how. And the first one to tell them is Trump. And Trump told them it's a cheating. What's cheating? What's cheating is what's gotten a lot of Republicans elected in the last few decades. The Electoral College, it's not a necessary thing anymore. That is what helps Republicans win when they shouldn't. You know how many times a Republican hasn't won the popular vote, but because they won a particular state that had more electoral college votes, because they don't all get the same. Like in the Senate, everybody gets 2 senators. That's not the way it works in the House. It's about how many people are in that state. And, you know, they're not telling you the truth. I am. I know that sounds like they're not telling you. I am. But I am telling you how elections work. I've said this before, and I am saying it now, and I will say it again. This is how elections work. And it's not like, well, you worked elections in that state. That's not how they work in this state. Yes, they all work generally the same way. They have to have the same basic rules. It's just the smaller things. If this state is a little more rural and they need a little more, like, different times, not everybody does early voting. You know, maybe some places they don't really need to do early voting or things like that. Every state, yes, but can do their own deal, but they all follow the same basic rules. And I advised you what those are. They're not telling you the truth. So if you don't have a car and you have a broken leg that year and you have to vote by mail, and then the RNC and Trump and Lara are going, then after all of that and you're waiting to hear election votes, they say, oh, we didn't count any of the early voting and any of the mail-in ballots because of blah, blah, blah. Would you be okay with that? Because that was your vote. That was your vote because you couldn't get to the voting place that day. So would that make you happy? Would you be okay with that? All that effort to order the ballot, to vote it, to be prepared, to know the topics and the people, and then they just say, no, I'm sorry, we're not counting yours. Would you be okay with that? Yeah, because the people that work the elections, we're not okay with that shit. We're working the flippin' election, so we had to vote early because everybody can't work the elections in their own precinct. That's not feasible. Okay, some of us are going to be in precincts that we don't vote in. We can't cast our vote there. How fair is that? We work the damn election and we can't be counted. So that is how they work. Do not believe them when they tell you their bullshit lies. Okay? Peace out.